Hi, fifth graders. We're here today for our fifth lesson for our fantasy book club unit. Today's actually a little bit of a different lesson because I don't have necessarily a learning target for you, but I actually have a question for you to consider as you are reading this week. So, the question I would like you to consider is that when you are thinking about the settings in your book, and I say settings because sometimes it's not just one place that the people are in, they're in multiple places. So, when you think about the different settings in your books, who has the power? An example of this is I'm reading the Hunger Games book right now. And I was thinking about this question when I knew that I was going to have to ask you about who has the power in your books. And so I thought about this question and I thought about two different settings in the Hunger Games book that I'm reading. So the first setting that I thought about is within the districts. Now, if you haven't read this book or if you haven't seen the movie yet, you can think of districts as kind of like states. Like the United States has 50 states, and um, in the Hunger Games, they have 12 districts. So think of them kind of like states. Now, in the districts, there, who has the power? I'm thinking initially the capital. The capital is kind of like the government. And within each district, they have peacekeepers. Peacekeepers are ones who make sure that people are following the rules. Kind of like law enforcement here, like police officers or the military. But in this case, they're called peacekeepers. And I just put a little note there that said that they're the peacekeepers in District 12, that's where Katniss, the main character, is from, are not as strict as some of the districts. And so, yes, they have power, but they're still just not really as strict. They don't enforce the rules as strongly as other districts. I also put on that side that Katniss and Gale have some power. And that is because they break the rules and don't get caught. And also, when one of the rules that they break is they go outside of the boundary of District 12, and they're not allowed to do that. But they go out there because there's woods out there and they hunt. And they hunt for squirrels and rabbits, wild turkeys, things like that. And they actually bring that game or those animals back into the district and they sell them to people. So they have something to trade from their hunting, which means they have a little bit of power. They can charge people what they want, however much money for the game, or they can charge them like whatever they want to trade for it. So they have a little bit of power there, especially because not everyone's going out and hunting. They're one of the few people that goes outside of the district boundary to hunt. And so they do have some power in that people aren't usually seeing rabbits and deer and wild turkeys in their meals, right? And not to mention that District 12 is very food deficient, meaning that there's not a lot of food there in general. So because they're providing food for the district, even if it is an illegal way, they have a lot of power there. Another setting in the Hunger Games is actually in the games themselves. So that's in the arena that the Hunger Games takes place in, where people are in and they're trying to survive and they're fighting against each other. The in the games, there is the capital, who again is like the government, or the game makers. They're the people who actually made the arena and put all of the challenges and things like that in there, all the dangerous things. So they're making the decisions about what happens in the game. So that's kind of the obvious power source in the games. They have power over the people there. They have power over the decisions that are made. Then we have the career tributes, which are the people in the games that are fighting in the games, but they have been training their entire lives for the games. So they're really strong. They have all these tricks that that they know about. They have a lot of different skills that will help them in the game. So they've been training their whole lives and they have an advantage over everyone else because not everyone has been training their entire lives for these games. So they have a little bit more power over those tributes that don't have those skills. Lastly, this is a little bit more surprising, and I had to think a little bit deeper about this one, is that actually Peeta and Katniss, who are the main characters, they have some power in the games as well, which initially I didn't really think, oh, I thought, no, I mean, they have some skills, not very many, but they don't have a lot of power because they can't really influence what decisions are made in the games. However, they are actually very smart in the way that they trick the capital in order to get sponsors and items throughout the games. So they say different things, or they do certain things because they know if they do those things or if they say those things, they'll get different items sent to them from the capital into the games that will help them. So they've kind of figured that out, and they haven't said that out loud, but they know that when they are doing certain things or saying certain things, they're going to get the things that they want from the capital. So there's some power in that too. So this week, as you're reading, I want you to just consider that question. Within the different settings in your story, who has the power? And don't always just think of the obvious person who has the power. Think a little bit deeper and think about those characters that don't seem very powerful, but maybe they have a little bit of power over a decision somebody else is going to make. Or maybe they have a little bit of power over, a certain item because they are really skilled at using it and nobody else knows how to use that. Okay, so be thinking about that in your fantasy novels this week, and I will see you in book
Hey,
club.
fifth graders, Miss Olson here, and I'm here to talk to you about lesson 2 in opinion writing. And we are just going to continue to build on what we learned in the last lesson around judging fairly. So, if you guys remember, in our last lesson, we looked at a collection of 5 dragons, and we made some decisions about the collection and which dragons were the best. But we learned some things that were really important about judging fairly, because sometimes our very first quick judgment actually doesn't give us the whole picture. So as we dug a little bit deeper, we learned that when we judge something, we need to compare all the things that we're judging one part at a time. So when we're looking at the dragons, we needed to look at the feet first, and we needed to then look at the wings, and then look at the tail. And when we took all those pieces together, we could come up with a judgment about which one was the best overall. And then your next step was to make sure that when you wrote about it, that you supported that. So if you said that the gray dragon had the best feet, you need to make sure that you explained why those were the best and give a few different reasons why that was the best for it. So I saw a lot of really great writing turned in. People were sending pictures of it and really paying attention to those close details of those dragons and what made them the best. So that was really great. One of the things that we're going to learn about today is that when somebody or a judge has an opinion about something, or judges or makes a nomination about what is the best, they actually don't just stop there. It's not like, oh, I judge one thing and I'm done, I'm ready to go home. They actually then move on to other collections, or they look at that exact same collection and have a different lens, thinking about different categories or different awards that they could nominate it for. And so we're going to do some of that work today. I got a lot of great pictures this week of collections that you guys had. And so those were super fun to see, and it was really great to read your writing about which individual things won within those collections and which ones you thought were the very best. And so I was excited to read those, and I'm excited going forward that we're going to continue to look at these same collections again. So one of the things I want us to think about is when we're giving an award or we're nominating something or someone for an award, we have to kind of think about them in our smaller categories. And there's actually some great examples of that we can see on TV every year. So one of those is the Grammy Awards. So Grammy Awards is an award show that happens every year, and it gives awards for music. So there could be like the best album out, or best song, or best new artist. And then there also could be categories like who had the best song in country music, or in pop music, or in rap. And so That's a way that we take one collection of the idea of songs and music, and we give different awards based on different characteristics or categories. Another example where we see this every year is the Oscars. So the Oscars is an award show that has to do with films and movies. And that is the large category, but within there, there's a lot of other awards and nominations that happen. So we can see awards for like the best movie overall. We could also see movies that are broken down, or awards that are broken down into categories in terms of like the genre. So maybe best animated picture, or best movie suspense, or best drama. So there's all different kinds of categories that we break down this larger genre or this larger category of music into and give awards for. So one other thing is, even as we're going into those smaller categories like best actor, we have to really still remember to judge fairly. So as we're looking at who is the best actor, we're looking at different components of acting that would really make them stand out. Okay, and so we're going to practice a second layer of judgment on our dragons again. And as we go back to them, we wanted to keep in mind that we want to look at each of these different parts. So as we go back to our dragons, maybe this time, instead of just which one is the best overall, maybe we think about which one is like the scariest or the cutest, right? So I'm going to go with which one is the scariest, and remembering that I need to think about the individual parts. I'm going to start off with the feet. So which dragon has the scariest feet? Well, right away I can tell I'm not going to vote for this one because this one looks pretty innocent. But to me, I like really there's lots of long claws. So I'm kind of thinking that the gray dragon has the scariest feet because of the size of like the talons that are on his feet. Those really stand out to me. It seems like next I should probably move on to the wings. So as I look at the wings, again, these are not super scary to me. These kind of look like the wings that I would see maybe on a bat. And that's not quite as like scary as this one again with that has the claws sticking out of the wings at the bottom and the top. So for me, the gray one again is the most scary, closely followed up by this orange or the red one with the spikes on the end of each one. So those would be my top two for that part. Again, thinking about the scariest, now I want to look at the head. Right away I'm drawn to the green one because there's two heads, the teeth are pretty fierce, and the eyes, they just look mean. And so that would be one of my top ones. But again, also I have to say, this one is breathing fire, which makes it very strong. And then this one's got horns and spikes all over it. So there's a lot of different things that really make it stand out to me. But I think when I say overall the scariest dragon, I'm going to have to go with the gray one. And when I want to explain my reasons, I want to go back to the talons on the feet, the spikes on the wings, and the fire maybe coming out of the head. But I'm going to really make sure that I explain how each of those reasons helped it to win the award of being the scariest dragon. So you guys are going to go into your own collections now and write about those today and think about the different categories that are different ways you could nominate things in your collection for an award. So if I was thinking about maybe this one up here and the toothless dragon, I might consider, okay, which one is the most accurate to the movie? And maybe I could look at I could look at its feet, which one's the most accurate. I could look at the eyes and see which one's the most accurate. And I might look at the tail and see, and then make some judgments on it. Which one is the most accurate and why? Okay. I can break it down even into other categories like that. It could be like, which one travels the best, or which one is the best for playing with outside. That could be a category itself. I think in the Pokemon ones, we could see which one is the most powerful, or which one is the best in a certain situation in the game. So thinking about the categories that you want to nominate pieces of your collection for, and then really, again, looking closely at those different components and saying why those pieces won. So this was the paper that came out in your packet. It really explains that well. You're going to Again, look at those different components and write about nominate one of the pieces from your collection, and then as you finish your writing, make sure you send a picture in to your teacher. All right, thanks guys, keep up the good work.
Hi, 5th grade, it's Mrs. McMillan here, and I'm here with your McMillan Math Minute, or 10. Today, I want to let you know what our target is and what we'll be going over. Today's target is I can estimate sums and differences of fractions. This goes with Unit 5, Module 4, page 23. Let me show you what that looks like. Here is what that page looks like. And this is what we've been working on. This is more of a review from throughout the year. A couple of weeks ago, this was also your target and you did some practice. So hopefully this comes pretty easy with you as you've had a lot of practice doing this. But nonetheless, let's go over what's expected so that we can all feel successful at this. Again, your target, I can estimate sums and differences of fractions. Remember, estimate is a guess, a reasonable guess. So our success criteria is going to be estimate, add or subtract, and check your work. You're going to check back, is your estimate, was it close? To do this estimate, we're going to use landmark numbers. We use landmark numbers way back when we were learning, even in first grade, counting by tens. And so landmark numbers are those numbers that are familiar. Now, when we are using fractions, we are going to be thinking about, is that fraction less than 1/2 or more than 1/2 is a great landmark, that 1/2. Or we can think about, is it less than, or is it close to, or is it more than 1? So you get to decide which of these would be best for the fractions that you are choosing. We're actually going to be going over number 3 that's on your paper. Number 3. So number 3's problem is 3/8 plus 8/12. Remember, back to our success criteria, your first step is to estimate. When I am estimating that, I'm going to think about these numbers. And if I think about the fraction 3/8, if we were having a class, I think lots of you would say, oh, I know 4/8 is equal to 1/2. So I know that 3/8 is pretty close, or close to 1/2. It's just a little bit below. And when I look at the 8/12, I think a few of you would probably also say, I know that 6/12 is the same as 1/2. So 8/12 is just a little more than 1/2. And when I think about 1/2 plus 1/2, that's 1 whole. So I'm going to think about these numbers as that one is close. 3/8 is close to 1/2. It's a little bit less. And 8/12 is a little bit more than 1/2. So I'm going to put a squiggle equal sign, and that means about or close to 1. I think that this answer is going to be close to 1 because I use the landmark 1/2. Moving on, after we have done our estimate on our problem, then we're going to check it. Last week, we talked about lowest common multiples and how we figured that out. The way we did that was we skip counted. So if I look at 3/8 and 8/12, I'm going to skip count by those denominators in order to find a common denominator. So I'm going to start with 8. If I'm skip counting by 8, 8, 16, 24, 32, and I'm actually going to stop there. If I skip count by 12s, it goes 12, 24. I can use the denominator 24 to find common denominators so I can add these problems. If I go to 3/8, I'm going to make 24 my denominator. To go from 8 to 24, I multiplied by 1, 2, 3 times. And if I multiply the bottom by 3, I'm going to do the same at the top. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 24ths. And I'm going to do the same over here. I know that my denominator will also be 24 because I want these two to have a common denominator or the same denominator. When I went from 12 to 24, I multiplied by 2. I can see that here. 1, 2. I multiply the bottom by 2. I'm also going to multiply the top by 2. 8 times 2 is 16. Now, my new problem with the common denominators, I'm going to now add 9 24ths plus 16 24ths. This problem is the same as my 3/8 plus 8 12ths. I've just turned these into equivalent fractions to figure that out. Using those landmarks really helped me to figure that out. When I add that together, 9 plus 16, I know 10 plus 16 is 26, and 1 less would be 25 24ths. And when I think about 25 24ths, I know that 24 24ths is equal to 1, and then there's just 1 24th left. So my number is very close to 1. If I go back, which is my last success criteria, and check, I ended up with 9 24ths plus 16 24ths, and that gave me 25 24ths, which I knew was 24 24ths is 1 whole and 1 24th, 1 little 24th left over. 1 24th is very close to 1 whole, so my estimate was really close. That's what we are doing. I'm going to go ahead and as you go through this, I want you to make sure that you are using the success criteria to answer your problem. I'm going to go over that one more time. You're going to first estimate your answer. Then you're going to add, or some of the problems are subtract your problem. And then you're going to check back. Was your estimate close? Or did you need to figure out a different landmark? Remember, when you are using those landmarks to find your estimate, the landmark numbers that you're going to go for are 1/2 or 1. Which is my fraction closest to? Remember, if you have any questions, reach out to me or to Mrs. Leibel so that we can meet with you and talk more about this. Learning on the computer is hard, but I know with a little practice you can do this. Also, after you finish watching this video, please go back and work on page 203, and please send Mrs. Leibel or myself a picture of your completed math. We want to check in and see how you're doing on this. Keep working hard, 5th grade. I know you can do it.